Thank you.
I mean, I think for the children it's wonderful, and for the adults too. You see the way the child appropriates so much.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you, Todd Milne, for getting us started once again this morning with your beautiful music. We really appreciate it. And welcome to Catherine as our lay leader today. Glad to have you back, and glad to have Michelina on our piano. She's going to be doing our special music today, and Deb Jackman is in the room going to lead us in some singing. So get ready. We are so glad to have all of you. Welcome to you to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, where our mission is to join together to create a nourishing, liberal religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world. I want to welcome each of you, as always, for all that you bring with you this morning, all of your unique beliefs and background and lifestyle experiences, all that helps make you who you are. And as always, this is true for those who hear me say this each Sunday, as well as those who might be joining us for the first time. You're equally as welcome. Glad to have all of you this morning. So thank you so much for being here. Just one quick announcement, really a request for you to think about. We are still looking for one to a few volunteers who would feel good about coming in and joining us for our virtual service on Sundays to run our slideshow so that we can actually have slides up on our screen and have some of our lyrics, and that Todd will be able to actually put those directly on your screen. If we had one more person who could just run our laptop, which is essentially a PowerPoint production, and all you have to do is hit the space bar once it's up. So if that's something you would be interested in, please either let me know or let our office know or let Deb Jackman know. Let somebody know so that we can continue to help our virtual service evolve towards even better quality. So thank you all for considering that. And with that said, use your technology now to greet one another, whether that means a text, a brief phone call, an email, something to those sitting right around you this morning. Please take a few moments to greet one another. Thank you, and as always, there will be more opportunity, obviously, following the service. It's a shame we can't meet in person during social hour at this time, but I think it's coming. But for the time being, be sure and continue to stay in touch with one another as much as is possible. For now, we're going to go ahead and move forward by lighting our chalice, the symbol of our faith, the symbol of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and our inclusion, of our community and our individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need, and may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found.
The opening reflection is drawn from the Philosophy Now magazine. What is the nature of reality? The real is the genuine, the reliable, what I can safely lean on. It is akin to truthful, valuable, even delightful. Its opposite is not illusion, but the fake, the counterfeit, that which can't be trusted, has no cash value. Theater, television, paintings, literature deal in illusion, but can be real, in the sense that they nurture and enlarge us, help to make sense of experience. When they fail in this, they feel unreal. They don't ring true. They are false. They fail as art. Theater and everyday life overlap, although the murderer in the play is not prosecuted. Psychotherapists know how people act out scripts, which they can rewrite to invent a new reality. It may not matter if the story of my life is real or invented, until a lawyer asks if I'm really the person mentioned in my long-lost uncle's will. The problem, what is reality, arises from a consciousness of ourselves as living in a world which seems to be outside of, and yet is the cause of, our conscious life.
Thank you so much. Catherine, you've got my philosophical wheels spinning now. I'm stuck on the question of whether or not the image in a painting is real. We might, the physicist would say the blotches of color are real substance, but what about the image? Where does the image exist? Anyway, I won't go there, and no, I'm not stoned, but but I was like, well, you got me going this morning, so well, we'll move on with our candles of care. I have quite a few this morning. Want to kindle a candle for Aaron and Dorothy Rowe, who have asked that we kindle one really on behalf of Aaron's mother, Karen, who was on her way here yesterday to attend her brother's memorial when they got word that her husband, Aaron's father, passed away. So they had to return pretty quickly. So we're thinking of their entire family at this time. And also for church members, Eileen Starr and her husband, John Douglas, who are still dealing with COVID-19, which is complicating other health issues as well. And a candle again for Joanne Bailey's son, Bill Bailey, who again is under hospice care at this time. Please keep Bill and their entire family in your thoughts as well. And we continue to think of Herb Bonello and Graham Taylor and Pamela Comstock, who are also dealing with serious health issues at this time. Let's take a moment of silence on behalf of others that you might be thinking of, and you're welcome to name them aloud at home if you'd like, or remember them in your silence. Those named aloud and those embraced in our silence, and all those who are suffering in our world at this hour, we hold in our community with compassion. And we are now going to have our story for all ages. As usual, I brought a couple of friends to help me out. Okay, we ready, guys? Ready. Oh, good. Okay. So I'm going to introduce you to a couple of friends of mine. These are my friends Larry and David. He's David. And he's Larry. Oh, sorry about that. You guys, both being twins, you look an awful lot alike to me. I'm much better looking. You wish. Well, I didn't mean to ruffle any feathers, so we're all friends here. Caw! Caw! Well, what are you guys laughing at? He just said caw caw at church. Okay, we're going to forego the potty humor, please. I brought you both here because I want to ask you a serious question. Get your opinion about something. So let's start with you, Larry. I told you. I'm David. He's Larry. Oh, sorry. I keep getting you guys mixed up. Caw! Caw! We're going to let that one slide. Okay, so I'm going to start with you, Larry. I want to know what I'm going to be talking about reality today, so I was hoping that you might give me your opinion on what makes something real. Something real. Something real makes you laugh. Something real makes you laugh. That's a really interesting viewpoint. I've never really heard that one before, but isn't something that makes you cry just as real? No way! No? I don't like crying, and I only delete things I like. Oh, okay, well, I got to say, I don't really agree with Larry that the only things that are real are the things we like, but there are certainly a lot of people out there who do, including a certain person in Washington, D.C. David, what about you? What do you think makes something real? You just asked me that. I told you. I'm Larry. He's David. He's David, but okay. Never mind. I'm sorry I keep getting you mixed up. So, David, would you please answer the question? What everyone else thinks is real must be real. Oh, I see. Well, I think a lot of people would agree with you too, but I'm not sure that just because something is popular that it makes it real. Millions of people can't be wrong. Well, actually, millions of people used to believe that the world is flat, but they turned out to be wrong, and sometimes individuals like Galileo, you know, the guy who discovered that the earth rotates around the sun, are treated like criminals for questioning what everyone else thinks they already know. But in the end, they turn out to be right anyway. So, Larry, do you have any ideas about what makes something real? I told you. I'm David. He's Larry. Oh, okay. Larry, what do you think makes something real? I think my ideas are real. You think your ideas are real? Well, there are a lot of people who think that ideas are reality, including a very famous philosopher named Plato, whom many consider one of the greatest thinkers ever to have lived. But there still are a lot of people who would also disagree. I know. What is it, David? I'm Larry. He's David. I'm getting really confused now. Okay, Larry, what do you say? I think real is what you can see and touch. Well, that's a pretty good guess, too. But what about things that you can't touch, like the air or even your thoughts? Aren't thoughts real? All right. Why don't you tell us what real means? Yeah, you got all the questions. How about making some answers for a change? Well, oh boy, I'm sorry. I was just really trying to get your guys' opinions. Caw! Caw! I guess that means you're both ready to leave. Caw! Caw! Well, thank you for meeting with us, Larry. David! Well, thank you, David, and thank you, Larry. David! Goodbye to both of you. My goodness, those two are characters.
I wrote the following words for the old little nature chapel. How easy it is to become discouraged when the world around us seems to change into one we do not recognize. And yet, each one of us was given the gift of hope upon birth. We all have the ability to look around us, to find reasons to believe that as long as we do our part to overcome the crisis, things will improve, and the light hidden behind the clouds will shine again, bringing with it a new measure of joy. Believe in the light. Breathe. In. Out. Namaste.
I've got a couple of readings this morning. The first is from a book by Bertrand Russell, The Proposed Roads to Freedom, which is really a collection of some of his essays. And I'm going to actually just read the second to his very last chapter. The world that we must seek is a world in which the creative spirit is alive, in which life is an adventure full of joy and hope, based rather upon the impulse to construct than upon the desire to retain what we possess or to seize what is possessed by others. It must be a world in which affection has free play, in which love is purged of the instinct for domination, in which cruelty and envy have been dispelled by happiness and the unfettered development of all the instincts that build up life and fill it with mental delights. Such a world is possible. It waits only for humanity to wish to create it. Speaking of which, Michelina is going to play our special music. You'll recognize the melody. And I'm going to, before she plays, just read some of the lyrics, which I know you'll be familiar with, but sometimes I think hearing the lyrics read can be a very meaningful experience. I'll gladly walk across the desert with no shoes upon my feet to share with you the last bite of bread I had to eat. I would swim out to save you in your sea of broken dreams. When all your hopes are sinking, let me show you what love means. Love can build a bridge between your heart and mine. Love can build a bridge. Don't you think it's time? Don't you think it's time? I would whisper love so loudly every heart would understand that love and only love can join the tribes of man. I would give my heart's desire so that you might see the first step is to realize that it all begins with you and me. Love can build a bridge between your heart and mine. Love can build a bridge. Don't you think it's time? Don't you think it's time? Michelina, thank you so much. Beautiful. The music is as beautiful as the message. This is the second in a series of sermons I'm calling the Perennial Problems Sermon. Today's title is The Basis of Reality. What is yours? When a child awakens from a nightmare, we provide comfort with reassurances that it was only a dream. This common condolence suggests that most of us believe that we can distinguish the difference between what is and isn't real, which seems so evident that we presume even young children can grasp it. We may not realize that we are dreaming when we're dreaming, but we know we've been dreaming when we're awake. Even so, if I ask you how you know you're awake and not dreaming right now, it might be hard for you to explain in a convincing way. If we don't know we're dreaming when we're dreaming, how can any of us say for sure that we're not dreaming? Well, I'd say it's because there are major differences between these two states that are palpable when we're awake. Unlike dreams, being awake is a richer, fuller, more continuous experience that's bound by the laws of physics. We dream of all sorts of fantastic powers, artifacts, and places, but upon awakening, we find a familiar world bound by consistent phenomenological constraints. We dream only a few minutes during REM sleep, which lasts an average of about 1.5 to 2 hours, I should say, per night, compared to being awake about 2/3 of our day. We mostly don't remember our dreams, yet retain much of our waking life from day to day and keep many of those memories for our entire lives. So it's not difficult to discern the differences between dreaming and waking once we're awake. And it's no wonder that even a child who intuitively recognizes the contiguous and consistent nature of the waking world can be genuinely comforted upon hearing the words, "It's okay, it's only a dream." So, we may know the difference between dreaming and awake, but the real question is, what does it mean to be awake? How do we know being awake isn't just another kind of dreaming, just a notch up from REM sleep? Consciousness is a relative term since we are conscious of little, since we are mostly unconscious, even when we are awake. Dreaming occurs only when we're close to a waking state and can itself be described as a relative kind of consciousness, which is why we remain conscious of some of our dreams. And when we are awake and aware that we aren't dreaming, we remain relatively conscious of only an infinitesimally small bit of reality. Our consciousness is mostly limited to our current surroundings, preoccupations, immediate perceptions, and our incomplete beliefs about the world. If I were to ask if there are any birds on the roof just a few feet above you right now, or a fly on the wall right behind you, or a dust bunny beneath the cushions you're sitting on, you are unlikely to know, although you can probably make a guess about the dust bunnies. The point is that even when we're in what we consider a waking state, we're not very conscious of much, not even of much that's right around us, let alone the whole wide world. Ours is a relative, isolated, locative state of wakefulness, much closer to the dream state than not, when considering all there is to know and how little we know of it. We are far more unconscious than conscious, even when we are awake. So what does it mean to be awake? And when it comes to our grasp on reality, how much better is it than just dreaming? The branch of philosophy seeking to understand the underlying nature of reality is called metaphysics. It's not only philosophy's first perennial problem, the question Western philosophy was born asking, but is also the question for which philosophers are often characterized as bumbling, out of touch, and useless for most anything but a few good laughs. After all, even young children know the difference between dreaming and being woke, to use one of today's arrogant and presumptive terms. Despite these mischaracterizations, philosophers prefer them to becoming subsumed within the matrix of common sense thinking, or being assimilated into the collective and unable to think for ourselves. I certainly have no desire to be part of those who arrogantly presume they have cornered the market on wokeness today, that they alone know what it means to be woke and can easily and quickly judge anyone who isn't woke. When it comes to wokeness, count me out. I'm neither woke nor still waking and can assure you that my resistance is not futile. Remember the allegory of Plato's cave about a group of prisoners who've been raised in a cave facing a wall upon which they only see shadows? It's the only reality they've ever known, so they are certain this dark world of mere shadows is the only reality there is. When an individual escapes into the bigger, brighter world outside their cloistered reality, then returns to lead them into the wonders outside of the cave, they take him for a blind man because he stumbles about, his eyes having not yet readjusted to the darkness. In Plato's Republic, Socrates tells this to Glaucon, a name that fittingly means gray-eyed, and shares the same root as glaucoma. Socrates tells Glaucon, men would say of him that up he went and down he came without his eyes, and that it was better not even to think of ascending. And if anyone should try to loose another and lead him up into the light, let them only catch the offender, and they would put him to death. Seeing and perceiving things differently than most has indeed gotten a lot of truly enlightened people killed throughout human history, and otherwise punished or ostracized. No wonder so few are courageous enough to leave the matrix or to resist the collective. But remaining in a dark cave is not being woke. It's endarkenment, not enlightenment. Thinking our limited perspective is all there is folly. Yet for tens of thousands of years, human beings understood and explained reality in dreamlike terms that they thoroughly believed. These phantasms that today we consider only myths often become the basis of religious beliefs that have been clung to and enforced upon others with religious certitude and fervor, some of which still are. Whether the belief in the Babylonian god Marduk, that he created the world out of the remains of Tiamat's body after slaying this monstrous chaos goddess with his explosive arrow, or that Gaia and Uranus, earth and sky, gave birth to the Greek titans, including Cronus, Time, and Rhea, the great mother, who themselves then gave birth to the Olympians, who ruled the elements and the seasons, including Apollo, who drags the sun across the sky with his chariot every day. To the Hebrew Yahwehs using voice commands to create the world in just 6 days, then walking about in a garden with the world's first humans. To the literal belief in the physical resurrection of an ancient martyr, humans have long taken stories no less impossible than the stuff of dreams as the stuff of reality itself, and in many cases still do. Which is why it's important to consider our own basis of reality, our own reasons for claiming that we know what's real. Western philosophy began by asking this question 2,600 years ago, beginning with the first philosopher, Thales of Miletus. Thales, like the escapee in Plato's allegory, was often scoffed and laughed at because of his obsession with figuring out the nature of reality. He was scoffed at because they considered it a useless waste of time. But Thales and the philosophers immediately following him were the first in recorded history who attempted to explain reality in natural rather than supernatural terms. They are usually referred to as the pre-Socratics, but to me this term diminishes their own significance by making them sound secondary to that of Socrates, as if philosophy had been waiting only until Socrates finally came around. Socrates certainly spun philosophy in new and important directions, but those who came before him took humanity in a mental leap forward as significant as Neil Armstrong's first steps upon the moon. So I'm more inclined to call Thales the founder of Western civilization than the first in a short line of pre-Socratics. What he and Anaximander and Anaximenes and Pythagoras and Democritus and the other first philosophers gave us should be considered among the most pivotal bifurcation points in human development. By seeking to explain our existence in natural rather than supernatural terms, the first philosophers simultaneously invented science, which is why Aristotle, a post-Socratic philosopher by 2 generations, refers to many of them in his physics book, Book 1, in which he calls them the physokoi, the physicists, rather than pre-Socratics. Philosophy and science began with Thales of Miletus in the early 6th century BCE, Bertrand Russell says. The rise of Greek civilization, which produced this outburst of intellectual activity, is one of the most spectacular events in history. Nothing like it has occurred before or since. As a result, we now distinguish between dreams as only dreams because there is something of a physokoi in each of us. That is, we think of reality in materialistic ways, even if we don't understand much about science or think of ourselves as materialists. A strict adherence to this metaphysic is called empiricism, which oddly comes from the skeptic philosophers who believed our perceptions of reality must always be questioned. The skeptics, however, were far from hopeless or nihilistic. They realized rather that we seek truth in order to find peace of mind, ataraxia, sometimes causing us to become dogmatic about our beliefs, thinking that we have discovered the truth, sometimes causing us to insist that the truth cannot be found, which is also a dogmatic position, and sometimes, as they preferred, by continuing the search, the quest, while suspending judgment, which keeps us from becoming dogmatic about anything. Skepticism was founded by Pyrrho in the 4th century BCE, who traveled from Greece to India during his life and was influenced by Hinduism's idea that nothing exists. Nete, that everything is an illusion. That, as Diogenes of Laertius wrote, nothing is either just or unjust. Nothing is honorable or dishonorable. Indeed, that nothing really exists, and only custom and habit guide human affairs. Neither our experience nor our beliefs, our doxai, are true or false. There is no logical difference between them, and therefore they are undecidable. Rather than becoming nihilistic, however, Pyrrho, Diogenes goes on to say, was supremely relaxed and calm. He was indifferent to events. He did not even try to get out of the way of oncoming traffic and had constantly to be rescued by his friends from being knocked down. It said he even once passed a drowning man without helping, since he believed saving or not saving him made no difference. So I'm pretty sure I would trade peace of mind for some anxiety if being anxious is necessary for me to care about my own well-being and the well-being of others. But such skepticism foreshadows the postmodern mindset many hold today, insisting that objective truth is unobtainable, that truth is subjective, and one person's truth is as good as any other's, and that science and facts are misleading and false. So it's interesting that empiricism was named after Pyrrho's skeptical successor, Sextus Empiricus, who reasoned, since it is necessary to counter dogmatism by always suspending judgment, that we should focus on what's right in front of us, on what's observable. Hence, empiricism has come to mean exactly that, focusing on observable facts and proven experience, even if we don't know what ultimate reality is, a philosophy that actually led to modern medicine. So remaining skeptical about what we know and what others claim to know can have pragmatic consequences, even if it is non-committal. I won't bore you with a litany of all that the various philosophers have said about the underlying nature of reality. For our purposes, it's enough to understand they essentially fall into two camps, which we have already been dealing with. The view that reality is physical and can be understood by determining the laws of physics, and the view that reality is non-physical, more akin to a dream, and that our sensual perceptions of the world are misleading. Plato's idealism, which posited the world that we perceive is only an imperfect simulation of an ideal realm that we cannot perceive. The Neoplatonists, who later influenced Christianity with their belief that mind is more fundamental than matter, and Descartes, who still later argued the only thing that any of us can really be sure of is the existence of our own minds, cogito ergo sum, and that knowledge can be obtained through reason alone without empirical evidence, are examples of non-physical metaphysics. Democritus, who was among the first philosophers, and held the belief that reality is composed of uncuttable, indivisible, unchanging atoms, one of the first atomic thinkers. And Karl Marx's dialectical materialism, positing that reality is purely physical and that history emerges due to the conflict between material forces, that, as he said, matter, nature, being, the physical is primary. The spirit, consciousness, sensation, and psychical is secondary, are examples of materialistic metaphysics. Today, this perennial metaphysical question, known as the mind-body problem, remains unanswered and seemingly unanswerable. The problem, in brief, is one of interaction. If mind and body, thought and matter are truly different, then they cannot influence each other, so there must be either one or the other. But which one? Either reality is composed of consciousness, a consciousness that is dreaming a physical illusion, or the world and everything in it are physical, including our thoughts that must be generated by neurochemical processes in the physical organ that we call the brain. Although I personally lean toward a materialistic and empirical view of reality, my point is not to solve the mind-body problem, but to point out that it is a perennial problem that has not been satisfactorily solved. It is a perennial problem that has not been satisfactorily solved. What is reality? What is reality? It is a perennial problem that has not been satisfactorily resolved. Still, many of us go about our lives as if we know precisely what reality is, so sure that we are ready to fight and hate over what we believe in, like the prisoners in Plato's cave who would kill anyone who tries to lead them or anyone else away from their small world. Those on the consciousness side of things, convinced they had become spiritually enlightened, easily become anti-intellectual and dismissive, as we have seen today, if not hostile toward reason and rational explanations. Those on the materialist side can become snobbish and equally as dismissive before the many mysteries that remain unexplained by science and reason. So even if we should remain skeptical of skepticism, lest we end up like pitiful Pyrrho, who doesn't even try to distinguish fact from fiction, it might be wise to at least adopt the skeptical practice of suspending judgment about the true nature of reality while basing decisions on what is observable and has proven reliable over time. This way we remain open to changing our minds as we continue to ponder the perennial problem, as well as open to those of different minds in the process. That's why asking this philosophical question is so important to leading a good life. Not for the purpose of actually discovering the true nature of reality, although that would be nice, but for the joy of learning to live at ease with uncertainty and experiencing the endless wonder and curiosity of life, while also helping to fashion a society in which it's okay not knowing, okay not going along with the crowd, okay if others disagree with us. It seems so basic, such a society. Philosopher James Carse says, "Knowing that we don't know is not only a higher ignorance, it is the basis of all our hope." Philosophy is especially important today in a society that is becoming increasingly divided by extremism and extremists who are so certain of their unexamined ideas, of their self-righteousness and wokeness, that they are ready to stuff square pegs into round holes, no matter the damage they do or to whom. As Russell wrote, people's opinions are mainly designed to make them feel comfortable. Truth, for most people, is a secondary consideration. Philosophy requires us to ask and to keep asking the big questions, the basis of our notions of ethics, truth, meaning, happiness, and reality itself. And to remain humble in our responses. The basis of reality. What is yours? I don't expect you to know the answer, but I do hope that you will ask the question. Thank you.
As is our new custom, we are having a closing hymn this morning. However, we of course don't have words for our screen without a person to do that. I did do a stopgap measure this week in our weekly email, which comes out on Thursday. I put a place in my column, music, where you can click and get the words to the sermon, to the hymn for that week. And so maybe some of you did that. This is one that should be somewhat familiar. For all that is our life. Sing along if you can. For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift, which we are called to use, to build a common good. And make our own days glad. For needs which others serve, for services we give,
midst of the chaos that much of the world is currently experiencing, we have the ability to find peace. Breathe. In. Out. In. Out. Imagine yourself surrounded by a mantle of healing light. Breathe in. The light penetrates within you. Breathe out. You let it come out through your arms, your fingers, into the world outside of you. Breathe. Peace. Namaste. Amen. Blessed be. Salam alaikum and shalom.
Shalom.